Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 16 of WiggyWam Get Your Property Questions Answered webinars. I'm super excited that you guys are here again with us another week into this, and we're heading towards the festive time of the year, wherever you are in the UK. I hope that it's something you can look forward to. I hope it's very much a time where you can reflect, shall we say, on the course of the last 12 months, which has been very hectic, certainly in the property world, and subject to a lot of change. And I know from personal experience that sometimes Christmas can be a difficult time for a lot of people. There is and I speak from personal experience here, there is the kind of John Lewis version of Christmas, if you like, where everything's rosy and happy and the family get together and it's wonderful and everybody, buys one another expensive gifts. And, people feel very much as though, it's a wonderful time of the year to be together with everybody. And then there is the other end of the scale. And you may or may not have seen a video doing the rounds on social media, which has been labeled, I think, the almost anti-John Lewis advert, if you like, or Christmas advert. And it can be a time of great distraction. It can be a time of great sadness. It can be a time of a lot of mixed emotion, a lot of different feelings for a lot of people. So I hope that whatever this time of the year is for you, as I say, it gives you a chance to reflect on the course of the last 12 months. And I also want to encourage you to do what's right for you during the course of the Christmas period. Personally, I've had quite a few Christmases in the past where, because relationships haven't been all that great with family, I've chosen to spend it on my own. And I'll be honest, they've been some of the happiest Christmases I've ever had. Me and the dog, which was the last couple of years, has been fantastic. Just to go out and have a really, really nice walk in the fresh Christmas air, talk to people, out and about walking their dogs, go home, cook a little bit of food, and not have to go through this huge anticlimax of this huge build up to Christmas, and then everything is over in a day, and then it's back to the grind a few days later. So I just want to encourage you to do whatever's right for you. If it's spending Christmas on your own and being okay with that, I'm going to encourage you to do that. If it's forcing you into a position where you've got to spend it with people that you don't want to spend it with, I'm going to encourage you to be selfish and do what's right for you. If that means pulling away from that group and being on your own, 100% go and do that. As I say, that's happened to me in the past several times, and it's brought me a great deal of satisfaction to do what I want to do rather than what's expected. And alternative, of course, if you've got great family around you and good friends and you want to spend time with them and have a lovely time, then fantastic. Please feel free to do that. I've also found that just as a quick share, and I'm not going to share exactly what I have done in the past because I'm not a believer in being one of these people that just takes their phone when they're handing somebody a £20 note in the street and just films it all. I don't believe in any of that, and I don't believe in telling the world stuff that you've done for charity. But I do believe that there's a couple of suggestions that one of the things you might want to consider is taking a couple of toys maybe to the local children's hospital and taking them with some wrapping paper and let the staff know what presents you brought in can be a really nice thing to do, just because I think it's that time of the year. If kids are in hospital over Christmas, it can be a very uncomfortable time for them, particularly their families. For them to wake up with a gift on Christmas Day, I think is a lovely thing to do. That's just my take. Maybe you go to a soup kitchen or do something of those along those lines would be also a really nice thing to do as well. So however you decide to spend your Christmas period, I hope you have a wonderful time doing that. We've got a lot to do still before the Christmas break and before the New Year is upon us. And one of the things that we announced last week, if you didn't catch our webinar last week, I did a crazy, crazy thing. And I actually announced that we were doing a £50,000 giveaway equivalent thereof within WiggyWam. And what we're going to do was to offer 10 free places on our 12-week roadmap training, which is designed to make your business an additional 20% of revenue over the course of the next 90 days. That is something that I decided to do almost on a bit of a whim, because I believe that businesses are struggling, or certainly will begin to struggle as we enter the new year. And I think businesses need a lot of support. And so for me, Christmas is a time of giving, and I am open to giving that to people who are open to the idea of receiving as well. That is also something I've realized from coaching a lot of people is that a lot of people do struggle to actually accept really great things into their life and to accept help and support. So, some people might feel that for whatever reason they don't think that I've got much value to add to their business, and that's okay because a lot of you just see this perhaps cute looking guy. Sitting at his computer, answering a few questions every week. But I just wanted to share a couple of stories of things that have happened in the past where I've coached and helped and mentored different business owners with their personal transformations and helped them with their getting what they wanted out of life. One story that sprang to mind earlier today when I was reflecting on this was there was a couple that first came to me and they wanted to build a property portfolio. And I sat down with them and I said, "Can you tell me what your goal is with property? What do you want to, where do you want to get to? What do you want to do?" And quick as a flash, the guy said, "Yeah, I want to build a £10 million property portfolio within 10 years. Okay. And I thought, okay, well, that's a fairly noble goal. Let's have a look at where you're starting from. Okay. So they presented all their financials and we started looking at them and took a bit of a sort of look beneath the bonnet, if you like, of their financial situation. And one of the things I noticed was that uh, they were not in a good position financially, and that's fairly okay. That's what we expect when people come to the investment arena, if you like, and they want to build a better life. Then I can understand that sometimes their finances may not align, or they might need a bit of help and support. But this particular couple were actually on the verge of going bankrupt, and I just looked at their figures and I was like, okay, but great goal, but you do realize that you're very close to bankruptcy. And they looked at me like, what? I said, look, here's your liabilities. This is how much is going out every single month. This is how much is coming in, and this is your liabilities, and these are where you stand with your credit cards and your payments and your timeframes and all the rest of it. I said, I can see this coming to a very abrupt ending unless you get things sorted out straight away. And within, I think at that time we were working together for about 8 weeks. It could have been longer, might have been 90 days. And this guy went hell for leather trying to turn things around. And within 90 days, he did. He shifted a lot of liabilities off his balance sheet, as it were, legally and professionally, shall we say, and also found ways to generate additional income to support his outgoings and all the rest of it, because that was one of the things that was killing them was a lack of income and a huge amount of outgoings. And the important point of the story was that unbelievably, his wife was actually a financial advisor. Okay, and having looked at the numbers and their financial statements, they couldn't see that they were in that difficult position. Okay, so I'm just showing that as a bit of a story, and on a personal note. The other story that I wanted to share with you was probably about 3 years ago now, prior to COVID and all the rest of it. I was called in to help a civil engineering company. This was quite an interesting story because it was an accountant that introduced me to them and said, look, they're in danger of going to the wall. Can you help them out? And I said, look, I'll willingly go in, spend a couple of weeks there, see what we can sort out, see what we can do to troubleshoot. And I don't know if you know much about civil engineering, but it's quite how do I say it? It's a very down to earth and quite rough and ready profession. The guys are straight talkers. They're used to dealing with the mud a lot and digging holes and very, very straight talking. There's no BS in civils at all. So I went in and looked at their financial situation and why they were in such a difficult position. And I started to note we had on the boardroom table these stacks and stacks of invoices, right? That they've been sending out for all this work that they were doing. And in civil engineering work, what happens, just to give you a bit of background, is that let's say there's an invoice that goes out for £10,000 worth of work. It's customary in the industry for a retention to be applied to that £10,000 worth of work. So the client might retain, say, £5,000. And that is on retention on the basis that within the 12 months defects period, that if something happens to the quality of the work, if let's say the tarmac deteriorates on the road where they've done an infill, then the contractor has the right to go back and redo that tarmac and then claim their £5,000 back. And if they don't go back and redo the work, then the client has that £5,000 to go back and get that work fixed, okay, or that error fixed. And that's kind of how the industry works. And it was introduced, this retention element was introduced because there was a lot of civil firms that went bust and left the client holding the bag as far as the costs of rectifying work that they'd already paid to have done. And so I was looking through the stacks of invoices, and within 3 or 4 hours, I was like, okay, can you guys help me here? Because these invoices had gone through both directors. It was husband and wife firm. Okay, both directors, their financial director as well, their accountant and the accountant's assistant had all gone through these invoices. And I sat there looking at it and I said, can you guys tell me like what's 5% of 73,000, whatever it is? And they went, oh, it's XYZ, right? And I said, well, can you tell me why the client's holding on to 10% instead of 5? And they're like, okay, we don't know, we've missed that. And it wasn't just on one invoice, it was on loads of invoices, right? So what this company was actually doing, the reason why they were in such a mess was because they were actually going out, doing the work, and then instead of earning their 5% profit and having a 5% retention, which the client held on to, they were actually going out doing the work, and the client was holding back 10%, which was actually their entire profit, which was actually sitting in other people's bank accounts. So they were running the firm on incredibly slim margins because that's how they felt a civil engineering business had to be run in order to try and be competitive and win work and all the rest of it. But not only that, all of their profit was sat in other people's bank accounts. And I'm just sitting there looking at this going, okay, guys, we've got no visibility on numbers whatsoever here. And so within about a week, we got these big whiteboards up on the walls, and we were looking at the pipeline income that was coming in to the firm versus the outgoings and all the rest of it. And the sad part about the story was that after about 2 months of looking at these numbers and looking at the pipeline, we came across a £70,000 shortfall. And in order for the firm to carry on trading, they'd borrowed money to try and keep it going. They'd gone to, I think it was Funding Circle or somewhere like that, to get some funds to keep the firm going. And there was no visibility on the number side of things at all. And I'm not saying I'm an expert in the numbers. I'm really not, okay? But what I am saying is that sometimes a fresh pair of eyes coming into the business can really lend a different perspective. And so in this situation, as I say, there was no visibility there. There was a £70,000 shortfall that was coming up in their accounts. And the funny part of the story is that I spoke to the director, who's this civils guy, and we sat there in the boardroom, and I said, okay, you've got a problem here because, come May, you're £70,000 in the hole and you've got no income. How are you going to bridge that gap? And he went, well, you'll have to put the money in. And I'm like, okay, for 2 weeks, I've been trying to sort out your company, and I've been trying to sort out a revised structure in the business, and all of my suggestions that I've put forward, you haven't taken on board. And in fact, you fought against me. And now when it comes to the crunch point, you want me to put my hand in my pocket, pull out a £70,000 check and cover your losses, right? Because you're not listening to how the business perhaps should be run. And it's very difficult, obviously, to tell somebody how to run their business. I'd subscribe to that view, other than if somebody needs to be told, I will tell them. But if they don't choose to take that knowledge on board, that's up to them, right? So I've gone from, shall we say, I had a bit of, a friend of mine pointed out that I have a bit of a savior complex, where I wanted to try and save a lot of people from hurting themselves financially or getting things wrong in business, whereas now I realize that people have to make their own mistakes, and they have to sometimes learn the hard way. There's nothing you can do about that. But the point of me sharing all of that with you is to highlight that, there's a reasonable amount of skill and knowledge tucked away up here somewhere. And if that's something that appeals to you and that you want to take advantage of, and having a fresh pair of eyes coming into your business to look at it over the course of 12 weeks and to really fast track your success, because I think 2023 is going to be a really challenging year. And particularly in estate agency and conveyancing, it's going to be make or break for a lot of business. I'm not going to beat about the bush. It really is going to be make or break. And I know that there will be many businesses that will make the wrong choices when it comes to how to financially manage the ship, if you like, to survive the year. And what I think a lot of businesses will do is end up chopping staff numbers in order to reduce overhead. And they're focusing on the wrong element, which is, first of all, getting rid of their human resources, which is perhaps the most important thing and the most time-consuming bit to build up in a business, is to train somebody in the way that you do things around here. But secondly, they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're reducing expenses rather than focusing on building revenue. And that's the most important thing. And particularly where a market is slowing down, where the market is going to get harder to sell property, where it's going to get harder to convince clients that they should be spending more money on a higher fee, or for conveyancing or estate agency. I think this is going to be a really challenging year. So if you are thinking that the next year holds also a lot of opportunity, because it does, and I want to be very clear about that, then I would encourage you to join our £50,000 Christmas giveaway by sending me an email, happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. That's happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. And in the subject line, just put Christmas giveaway. Okay, Christmas giveaway. That's all you need to put in the subject line, and just send that email in. Everybody will go into a hat. We'll do the draw on Christmas Day. I think that'll be a good time to do a bit of a draw. We're giving away 10 places. And as I say, over the course of 12 weeks, I'll hold your hand in building up your business and stacking an additional 20% of revenue onto your business within 90 days. Okay, that's a promise. We will, well, it's actually a guarantee, not a promise. I'll make that happen. The other thing I will say to you is that if you are not a business owner, but you like the sound of this and you think it could actually enhance your career, whether you are a plumber, a sparky, whether you're a removals man or woman, whether you're a surveyor, conveyancer, estate agent, letting agent, or anybody that's connected with the property industry, then if you feel that actually you could get some benefit out of this, then please reach out to me as well. You can join in the Christmas giveaway. And if we draw your name out of the hat, you'll win the space, and we'll work with you over the course of the next 12 weeks to really bolster your authority in the industry. And that has a massive consequence in terms of your demand, i.e. what employers will pay you to have the privilege of you working for them. Okay, so it's open to everybody. I'm not going to harp on about it. It's there if you want it. As I say, I'm not going to try and push you or force you to join in. You either want it or you don't. It's a take it or leave it situation. We've kept the barrier to entry very, very low in terms of joining in. If you want to join in, as I say, just send me an email, happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk, and put the subject line as Christmas giveaway. And I'd be delighted to draw your name out of a hat, all being well, on Christmas Day, whilst we're enjoying a glass of port or something like that. All right, so that'll be fun. As I say, I'll leave it with you. It's up to you. If you want it, reach out, grab it with both hands. If you don't, again, no hard feelings. Wishing you all the best of luck in 2023, whatever happens. Okay, right. So just want to give you that context, guys, before we kicked off today's webinar, because it is important. We've had a few people reach out saying, what is this actually all about? And I think in my enthusiasm last week, I just wanted to sort of make the announcement and get people involved, but I didn't really give you guys too much context. So if you've got that understanding now, then hopefully that'll give us enough room to sort of move on and get into this week's questions. Question number one is coming from Kenny here. Hi there, Kenny. Thank you for your question and for being part of our amazing WiggyWam community. Kenny says, I have a number of properties, including one that needed doing up, which I recently sold. I got to know the new owner really well and was very impressed with what he'd done to it. We are in discussions about doing a couple of flips together, as the standard of his work was impeccable. I'd cover the mortgage and leave him to renovate. When it's finished, I'd get the pre-renovated asking price and he keeps the rest. Firstly, is this a good or bad idea? If not, what is a better way of working? Also, would I be responsible for all solicitors and agency fees, energy bills, and so on? Is it me if I take out the mortgage? Should I pay half the renovation costs, or should we do everything 50-50 down the middle? Okay, Kenny, well, that's a great question. Thank you for that. This is something I've seen quite often in the property investor space, and it's something that we have, so to say, recommended that people go down this road if they're struggling to build a property portfolio because they don't have a lot of cash initially. They can do a joint venture with a builder, where the builder can go in and do the renovation works, and they just fund the purchase of that property. Okay, so it's something that it certainly is advantageous if you've got the right person to work with as a business partner. And the only way you're going to find this out, unfortunately, is just by doing a project. Okay, so the one bit of advice I will give you, Kenny, and you must take this on board if you're going to do this, you must put everything in writing. Okay, decide what you're going to do, put it all in writing. So whether I would go and have a coffee with your proposed colleague here and walk through a couple of hypothetical scenarios with the projects that you're thinking about doing together. So we'll start with one property. Let's say you buy it at 150,000. You might spend 25 on it, and you might sell it for, say, 210, something along those lines. So, walk through scenarios of what happens if, God forbid, he falls ill, can't finish the renovation works, or he falls over on site and breaks a leg. Okay, what happens there? Are you insured to cover his liability and all the rest of it. What happens if you have to sell it below what you paid for the property? Okay, um, because the market crashes. What happens if you can't sell it? You have to rent it out. Um, there's all these sorts of things, these scenarios that you have to plan in advance for, because this is the point where people fall out. Let's say, for example, you get to the end of the project. He's put the equivalent of £10,000 worth of time and effort into doing the project for you, and he's banking on being paid. You call the estate agents up, they come around, they tell you that they'll sell the property within 12 weeks. You get them all on board, and you get right to the 11th hour, and then your buyer pulls out for whatever reason, and then you haven't sold the property, and this guy's desperate for money. What then happens? Okay, is he in a position financially to not worry about it, or does it sound like a really good idea? And actually, the reality is he can't afford to sit around and wait for his money to come in. So those are the sorts of things you want to think about. Now, if you're in a position to maybe pay him a day rate and then do a profit share, that might actually work out better because he's getting some cash at least, and then he'll do a share of profit at the end. Also, some of the things I've seen in these situations, Kenny, is that there is a difference of opinion on the finish of the property, and that can be a real challenge because when you're doing a house up for yourself to live in, you tend to want to put the best bathroom in and the best kitchen and all the rest of it, right? But when you're doing a property to flip, you probably want to put something in that looks nice and is functional, but you probably don't want to spend top end, right? And sometimes I've seen people fall out because one party wants to put a really nice kitchen in, and then the other party is like, well, actually, that's a bit too much. It's out of our budget. Oh, well, but we won't be able to sell it if we don't do this. Or they put too much personalization into it. So they do green walls in the kitchen and blue walls in the bathroom, and it's too bright, it's too austere, the colors are too much, and it makes it difficult for the property to sell. Okay, so those are the sorts of things you want to really think about. You need a standard, and if you can go around and look at other properties that are for sale at the moment in your local area, look at what the standard is, agree the standard, maybe go to Wix or B&Q, those sorts of places, and agree the standard of the kitchen that you're putting in and the standard of the bathroom you're putting in. Those would be a really, really good place to start. Okay, and then draw it up into some form of informal partnership agreement. Okay, and then you have a mechanism for all of these things that will happen. You have some kind of outcome or next step if such a thing happens. Okay, and you'll never cover 100% of all of these different scenarios. Okay, so you'll never nail it 100%, but what you are doing is you're putting a framework in place where you can both meet in the middle about what is fair. And I think that's the most important thing to get to. If you can both have an understanding of this is what's fair, this is what's not fair, then you'll find that these sorts of projects go a lot better. The worst ones I see are where people just end up falling out, and then the property's half finished, and then it's like, well, how do we finish this project? Because this guy's not turning up to do the work anymore. I can't afford to put any more money in because I've run out, and you then end up in this very, very contentious situation where you end up falling out, and then lawyers get involved and God knows what else, which you want to try and avoid like the plague if you can. Okay, so that's how I would approach it. Do that work up front, and the partnership will be a lot more plain sailing. If you don't do the work up front and you just go into it thinking everything's going to be rosy, I guarantee things will start to fall apart quite quickly. They'll start to unravel quickly, and then you'll end up in a situation where you'll be banging your head up against the wall, wishing, why did I even start this project in the first place? It happens, unfortunately. It's managing people and relationships. I've known investors work with builders for months or years. It actually happened to me where I had a builder. He did, I think, 7 or 8 properties for me, top to bottom refurb jobs. It was almost like a conveyor belt. He knew the standard. He knew what we were doing. Great work for him. Really, really good income earner for him. And then I bought a property for myself, which I lived in for a short period. It was going to be a holiday let, that sort of thing. And it took him 6 weeks to renovate a kitchen that was about, just trying to think now, 8 foot by 8 foot. It was a small kitchen. And we had to take the ceiling down and put the new ceiling up and then put new kitchen units in. It was not a complicated job at all. And we ended up having a fallout over that because I was like, why, when you've done 3-bed properties and have done a complete refurb in terms of new kitchen, new bathroom, replaster, update the electrics, update the plumbing system, fresh coat of paint throughout, new carpets, new doors, all the rest of it. You've done that in 4 weeks, and it's taken you 6 weeks to do this kitchen. That ended up in our relationship breaking down substantially, as you can imagine. So I just want to give you that bit of an insight there, Kenny. Wishing you the best of luck. If there's anything we can do, obviously let me know, but I'm just going to wish you the best of luck with that. Do one project, see how you get on. If it works out well, on to the next one, and then hopefully, there's less need for the paperwork, but at least you've got it in place. God forbid should things go wrong. Okay, good luck with that, Kenny. Wish you the best of luck for Christmas as well, and let me know if we can do anything else to help. Okay, all right, moving on. Question number 2 has come in from Michael. Michael says, hi there, Michael. Good to see you on a webinar, and thank you for your question. So Michael says, I've been knocked back on a recent mortgage application, but cannot work out why. Are there any tips you can give me to help make my position more appealing to lenders, and any tips to rebuild my credit just in case it slips somehow? Okay, Michael, well, thank you for that question. Great question, because this is something that I don't see many mortgage brokers talking about or having knowledge of necessarily with working with their clients to put them in the best position possible for raising finance for a purchase. And it's something we used to teach a lot when I was doing the sort of seminar circuits and speaking for property investor organizations on helping people to rebuild their credit rating because for whatever reason it had fallen apart, or something negative had happened and all the rest of it. So the quickest ways I can show you how to do this, Michael, or the best advice I can give you, first step would be to write to the credit reference agencies. There's 3 of them: Experian, Equifax, and it used to be called Call Credit. It's now called TransUnion. So you want to write to them. If you go on their website, you can download a form to order your statutory credit report. Okay. Now, this is different because a lot of these credit reference agencies will try and sell you into a monthly sort of digital access to your credit report, and you can see what changes month on month on month. Initially, I'm not going to encourage you to sign up for that. I'm going to ask you to get your statutory credit report and get it printed in hard copy and sent to your door. Okay. Now, as I say, on each of those individual websites, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, you can download a copy of their form for the statutory credit report, and then you'll fill in the form. Send it with I send it with a cover letter. It's up to you how you want to do it, but put a cover letter in there and list the last 6 years of addresses that you've lived in, along with the dates that you've lived there for. Okay. And send that off. And then within 7 days, there or thereabouts, you should get a copy of your statutory credit report in from each of those different agencies. Okay. Now, depending upon how active you've been financially, that report might be quite thin or it might be quite thick. And what you need to do is to go through that report with a fine tooth comb. And what you're looking for is any errors or omissions within each one of the credit reports. Now, it might be things as simple as, a misspelling of your name. It might be an error in your address. For example, that you might say, I live at number 12 New Road, and somebody's put down number 2 New Road or something like that. So what you've got to remember is that every time you make an application for a credit card or a mortgage or any kind of financial instrument, for want of a better word, you'll have teams of data inputters that will input data into their systems, and then those systems share that data with the credit reference agencies. And with the greatest respect to everybody in the world, they're probably not that hot on accuracy. Okay, so sometimes there can be misspellings, errors in information that's actually put into the data that they enter into their system. That gets shared with the credit reference agency, and what they're looking for is consistency. So if there's things that are happening where there's inconsistencies showing up in the data and information that's being shared, that will have a negative impact on your credit score. Okay, so the whole idea is go through it and see if there's anything on your credit report that needs correcting, first and foremost, or as is very common, things are appearing on your credit file that are nothing to do with you. So let's say, for example, you moved into a house where the previous owner had bad credit. There could be a knock-on effect where somehow they've been linked to your credit file, and then their data is now showing on your credit file. So, for example, if two people get married, okay, one's got great credit, the other one's got really bad credit. The moment they get married, their credit files tend to get intertwined, okay, and the bad credit can pull down the great credit, but the um, great credit can pull up the bad credit. Okay, so it can be this kind of balancing act, but it can be a problem if somebody's got great credit and they're used to getting everything rubber stamped very, very quickly. It can be a problem then in getting certain finance products in place. So you want to check that there's nothing on your credit file that shouldn't be on there, that hasn't appeared from a previous address or a previous partner, or there's been some kind of error in the data entry where something has appeared on your credit file that actually shouldn't be there. And if you are noticing that there are errors and omissions, or there's stuff that's on there that shouldn't be on there, then you want to write to each different agency, highlight what's gone wrong, and then make them aware of these are the things that need to be changed and altered and brought up to date. Now, that will take a couple of weeks to filter through. It may be that they come back to you and say, can you explain more about this situation? You are allowed to put, I think it's called a notice of correction. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it's called a notice of correction. So if there's something that happened, let's say 3 years ago, you missed a payment on something, you can put, actually, this payment was made, not sure why it's showing as missed. And if there are things like that, because that's where your credit file tends to get reduced quite substantially, is where there are missed payments, or there are payments that haven't been met correctly, or they're just not recorded. You've made them on time, but for whatever reason they're not recorded properly. Then those are the sorts of things that you need to correct. And if you can provide evidence that says, actually, here's my bank statement that shows on this date this payment was made, not sure why it's not showing, but you need to make sure that it is, then get those things updated on your credit file, because it's important to build that established credit history. Okay. And that should help you to tidy up over a period of probably, let's be realistic, it's going to be at least 12 weeks, right? To help you to tidy up your credit file, go back and forth, do that process, and then make sure that everything is as it should be across those 3 credit files. Now, the second thing you might want to consider doing, Michael, and you haven't mentioned this in your question, but I'm going to mention it because I think it might be useful for anybody watching who might be in a similar position to you, is that you might be in a position where you've been knocked back because banks are getting nervous about the level of personal debt that people are carrying right now. Okay. And what you want to do is to put a plan in place to reduce your the amount of borrowing. So on a credit file, for example, let's say you've got 5 credit cards. And for the sake of making maths really, really simple, each of those 5 credit cards has a limit of £1,000. And if you're up to £900 on each of those limits across those 5 cards, they might look at your credit file and go, actually, this guy's pretty close to his limits across these 5 cards. Is he being sensible with the borrowing that he's got? If that was 50%, or there was 1 or 2 cards that had nothing on them whatsoever, then that might look more favorable to lenders as far as your sort of, shall we say, debt to equity ratio. It's not quite like that, but your debt to limit ratio, should I say, is more favorable. Okay, so you want to look at reducing down the amount of borrowings that you are carrying, because that might be one of the reasons why you got knocked back. And one of the things I have to be very careful when I tell you about this, Michael, because obviously I'm not financially qualified. I'm not giving you any kind of FCA regulated financial advice or anything of that nature. Okay. But what I have noticed people do in these sort of situations, and I've done it myself, is that if you've got, let's say you've got 3 or 4 credit cards, if you look at the percentage rate that people pay on credit cards, it's extortion. Let's not beat about the bush, okay? You're talking 15, 18, 20, 25%, 30% interest that you're paying on these credit cards. And in fact, I'm told that if you max out the balance of your credit card and you just pay the minimum amount every single month, it will take you 36 years to clear the balance on that credit card. Okay. And that's, you're not mishearing things. 36 years to repay the balance on that credit card. Okay, so what you want to be doing is looking at things like, or what should I say, what I would do in your situation, Michael, is I would be looking at doing what's called stoozing, and that is either getting another credit card with a 0% balance and transferring the balance onto that, and then committing to paying down that balance as quickly as possible. The reason why you want 0% is because you're not then paying a fortune to pay the interest on the balance that you're carrying. You're just going to be paying off the balance every single month, right? And that's where you want to be pitching yourself to do this. You can do this, and what a lot of people don't know is you can call your existing credit card companies and negotiate the rate on your card. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to go out and get another card with 0%. You can call your existing lender and credit card company and say, I'd like 0%, please. Okay, and they'll say, well, you've already had 0%. They say, well, I'd like it again. All right. Oh, I'm not sure we can do that, sir. Well, I'm sure you can because you're doing it for new customers only. That's for new customers only, sir. So you're discriminating against me then? Uh, 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 well, you are, aren't you? You're discriminating against me because I'm an established customer of yours, and you're giving people that have no track record with you a better deal than what you're giving to me. Okay, isn't that discrimination? And what you'll tend to find is that they tend to get very concerned about these sorts of conversations, and you may find that they will actually reduce the interest or um, give you a 0% rate for a certain period. But obviously, if you're going to do something like this, Michael, you don't want to be spending more money on your credit cards. Okay, the best thing you can do: cut your credit cards up, pay down that balance. Okay, and not put yourself in a position where you're highly leveraged and you're very close to your limit that you've got on each of those cards. Does that make sense? I hope it does. It's something that I'm quite passionate about because it's one of the things that I think is going to have a massive impact on the market in 2023. Is it's not necessarily the people's mortgages and all the rest of it. It actually will be the personal debt that carries people over the edge, I think, in this next economy. So that's how I would approach it if I was in your shoes. If there's anything else I can do to help you out on that, Michael, let me know. Have a look online for stoozing. It's quite an interesting subject. We used to do it a lot when we were in the property investor world. It's great if you're very good at managing your finances. If you're one of these people that likes to spend, then I don't encourage this at all. I encourage you to cut your credit cards up and work out a plan to get rid of that consumer debt as much as possible. If you're going to be sensible and use it for the right sort of reasons, then it can be a really useful it would be a really useful source of funds for different projects, but you have to manage it so carefully. And as I say, many people get themselves into difficulty when they don't manage it effectively. Okay. So best of luck with that. Best of luck with that, Michael. Hope it all works out for you. Anything else we can do to help, let me know. Otherwise, have a fabulous Christmas and look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Okay, question number 3 comes in from Nils. Hi there, Nils. Thank you for your question. So Nils says, me and my girlfriend are first-time buyers. I'm putting 50,000 towards the deposit, whilst she can only afford 12,000. To be fair to each other, we've also agreed to split all expenses 65-35, as I'm also the biggest earner. We're not looking to get married anytime soon and have no kids. Her father has suggested that even though our contributions are different, the property ownership should be split 50-50. We're going to be tenants in common. Her father said that should we split up, it might cause problems as these things can get bitter. Would we both be entitled to our initial deposits and is it fair to think if I have paid the most and will be contributing the most that I should get a bigger share of the sale if we end up selling? Okay, great question there, Niels. Thanks for that. I really appreciate what you're saying there, and this is quite common in a lot of situations where two people come together and there's different financial firepower, if you like, as far as they're concerned coming into the relationship. Either, as you put it, a bigger deposit or bigger earning power, or both. And the way I would approach it, as far as you're concerned, is go into this whole thing eyes wide open, similar to what I was saying to the first question here that came in from Kenny about having things in writing. It's absolutely vital. If you're going into a relationship where you're not married, you're going to be cohabiting, you're buying a property together. As Judge Judy would say, you're playing couples. Okay, you're playing as a married couple. That's her way of looking at things. But the way to look at it is you're going into this eyes wide open. You need to have everything in writing of what you're agreeing to, so that God forbid if things do fall apart, you've got something you can refer back to that stops all the arguments, that stops all the bitterness, that says, okay, this is what we agreed going into this. This is how we're going to exit this whole thing on the back end. And you want to look at it from a point of view that if you're putting the majority of the money in up front, if it was fair in terms of running the monthly household bills and you were both contributing the same, then it would seem fair that if you just took your deposits back initially, and then whatever equity growth was in the property over the time of ownership, if you split that 50-50, that would seem a fair way to approach things, right? But, you know, it sounds to me as though there's going to be a very different approach as far as the monthly running of the property is concerned. Um, and I would be careful to make sure that was agreed in writing and done up front, because it could get difficult, as you say, if things start to fall apart and things start to get a little bit more, shall we say, agitated, particularly if there's more people involved. Like, for example, what would be your father-in-law if you got married? There would be potentially additional pressure that could come to bear in that sort of a situation. Now, I want to give you a bit of an example because this happened to a friend of mine many years ago, and he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. Love him to bits. I won't mention who it is, but he'll know when I tell the story. But what happened was him and his partner bought a property in the northeast. They had been living together for about 3 years, I think, in one property. They sold that. They then upgraded to a bigger property, and it needed quite a lot of work doing to it. So what they agreed was that her father would do a lot of the renovation works to the property. And I think, off the top of my head, I think he quoted something like £23,000 to do the renovation works, right? That was all agreed. He got on with the work. And then about two-thirds of the way through the job, he said, yeah, it's actually going to be more like 34,000. And I'm like, okay, that's a major jump. And this was at a time when their relationship was starting to break down. It was starting to get a little bit contentious. And he actually invited us up to have a look at the property. And at the time, I was just qualifying as a surveyor. And I'm looking around this house and going, okay, there was a dwarf wall in the kitchen where some of the units backed up to. And I sort of leant against this wall. And I kid you not, it started rocking. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is not good. And he got he got these French doors that opened out onto the garden, right? And I said, "Who fitted these doors?" And he laughingly said, it was a blind guy," meaning the father-in-law was also a blind fitter. But the way he said it was just like he was a blind guy. And I looked at him like, I'm not surprised, because the hinges were buried about 3/4 of an inch into the timber frames. And I was like, what on earth has been going on here? It was just a mess, basically. And I just thought, why would you be spending your hard-earned cash on employing a cowboy builder, even if it is your what would be your father-in-law? And that relationship ended up going south, and they ended up splitting up. Now, I wasn't privy to what the financial arrangement was going in, and I wasn't privy to the financial arrangement coming out. But what I can tell you is that having stuff in writing definitely eases the burden when it comes to the emotional side of things when there's a parting of company between the two of you. Because at the moment you're getting on well, the relationship's going well by the sounds of things. It must be because you're thinking about getting a house together, right? So have that conversation. God forbid this happens, we decide to split up. How are we going to handle it? I think it's fair that I'm putting 50,000 into this property, that I get at least that £50,000 back. You know, you might want to capitulate on the fact that you're going 65-35 on the bills, that you then decide to, you know, take 50-50 on the equity. She's getting a 15% gain on any equity over the course of the next 3, 5, 10 years, however long you guys are together. And God forbid you don't end up selling. This is just a precautionary measure, but it's sensible. And if you're meeting resistance, having that conversation and documenting things in writing, it might be a red flag for other things that might unfold in the relationship in the future. Okay, obviously, I don't know you both. I don't know all of the scenarios that are around you both, but there's other things, as I say, that will potentially influence this, such as what happens if one of you runs up a load of credit card debt, or what happens if one of you doesn't make your payments on your credit cards or your car payments or whatever else it might be. Who's on the hook for what payments? Who's on the hook for the mortgage? God forbid one of you loses your job. What then? What then? What then? Okay. So having that conversation, yes, it's difficult. And yes, you have to go at it with cool and rational heads. But it's far better to do it up front when the relationship is sound than trying to negotiate it on the back end when, you know, things are really uncertain. And of course, the other thing is that if you're buying a property now and the market dips 20%, you both might be out of pocket because the property might be in negative equity. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. These are the sorts of things that you need to think about and you need to have those conversations with. I had another friend actually who bought a property with his partner, and they this was before the last credit crunch. This was about 2006, I think it was, and they got 125% mortgage on the property. Okay, it was shocking, but they were going to build this extension on the side, and then again, him and his partner ended up splitting up. I don't know all of the ins and outs of that financial situation, but you can understand that if there's no equity in the property, it probably makes the decision to split a lot easier. But also, don't forget that somebody's on the hook for all of that level of debt, right? So you need to have that honest and frank and open conversation. And if you want more ideas of what to include in that conversation, then just let me know. I'm more than happy to throw a few more questions at you, Niels. But I think have it up front, get it in writing, agree it between the two of you. Then you can at least show that you've had that honest conversation with your father-in-law. That might just give him a bit more peace of mind as to the fact that you're both being adults and you're going into this thing eyes wide open. And then it's just down to the both of you to work at the relationship and make sure that it unfolds the way you want it to. Okay, so best of luck with that, Niels. As I say, anything else we can do to help, let me know. Otherwise, good luck and have a great Christmas. So question number 4 comes in from Kerry. Hi there, Kerry. Thank you for your question and for being part of our amazing WiggyWam community. Kerry asks, what are the benefits of the current market for a first-time buyer, if any? Okay, Kerry, well, nice and short and sweet, that one. Wonderful. From a point of view of being a first-time buyer in the market at the moment, Kerry, I think the main benefit probably comes down to 2 things, okay? One is more availability of choice than there has been perhaps in the last couple of years, because more properties will begin to come on the market than ever before. And as a consequence, you've got a wider choice if you're prepared to sort of sit and wait for a little bit than you would have had in the last 2 years when people were getting desperate for a property and they felt that they were never going to be able to buy anything unless they overpaid. So you're going to have more choice. And as a consequence of more choice and a slower market, which I believe will be the case in 2023, you'll also be able to buy better. Okay, so rather than being forced into a position where you've got to pay over the asking price or whatever else it might be, the price is escalating away from you, actually the price can be set by your parameters, which is, do you know what, I'm one of only one other buyer in the marketplace. This is where the property works for me. This is what I'm prepared to offer. And then you can make an offer which is sensible and, more importantly, affordable. Now, what I think is going to happen for a few people is that there's going to be a number of difficulties in raising finance to buy a property. Okay. And that will obviously affect how much properties sell for. And this is one of the biggest things that I don't think people are necessarily prepared for in the current marketplace, is that what will probably happen, if you want my prediction over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be a lag in the market. And what will happen over the course of the next 3 months, shall we say, as we head towards the spring market, the people that have put their house on the market recently will likely be reflecting on the fact that this is a lull. Okay, this is a lull in the market. The market's got a little bit overexcited. There's actually a great scene in The Big Short. It's, there's a real realtor. She's driving people round to look at properties, and she says, "Oh, the market's in a little bit of a gully right now." Okay, and this is not to offend estate agents in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, estate agents, their job is to get the best possible price for a property on behalf of their clients. But the key point here is when the market enters this little bit of a lull, sellers will sit on their hands in the expectation that a buyer will show up. Okay. And what it requires is, unfortunately, and I'm going to be very frank here, Kerry, what it requires for a lot of sellers is to go through that period of nobody showing up for a viewing or very few people showing up for a viewing, and then no offers coming in or lower offers than their asking price being tabled. And that causes the seller to think, because the psychology of most sellers is they put the property up for sale. They're expecting it to sell overnight. They're expecting it to sell for more than it's on the market for in some cases, but they're certainly expecting it to sell quickly. And when it doesn't, that's when the pain starts to set in and they start to change their thinking. Okay, so what's wrong? What's going on? Why is this property not selling? And it requires that lack of momentum, lack of interest, lack of offers on the table in order for the seller's thinking to start changing, in order for them to go, actually, we might need to reduce the price. And they'll have conversations with their estate agent, and their estate agent will say, yeah, well, we tried it at this level. It didn't work. We haven't got the interest. Let's drop it by 10,000, 15,000, whatever it might be. And of course, the biggest thing to bear in mind, Kerry, as a first time buyer is the lower the purchase price that you can pay for that property, the lower your commitment to a 25-year plus mortgage on that property. Okay, so if you were lucky and you got a property £50,000 less than it was on the market for, or £50,000 less than what it's worth in some cases, as property investors are fairly used to doing, just think about the difference that makes in terms of the amount that you have to borrow to buy that property. Okay, it's huge, and it makes a massive difference to what you're committing to in terms of taking on a 25-year mortgage and then making payments on that every single month, because actually you're reducing down the amount of debt you're taking on in the first place, you're reducing the amount of your monthly payment, and that can put you in a really strong position financially, okay, over the long term. So that's where I would get quite excited if I was in your position, Kerry, as a first time buyer going to the marketplace. You're going to have more choice. You're going to be able to buy better. So probably either a better quality property than you perhaps would have been able to afford, or paying less for that same property now than you probably would have done 2 years ago. Okay, or certainly 12 months ago. So there's going to be a lot more choice, better deals, and if you're patient, I think you could be looking onto the right property, one perhaps that you didn't think you might be able to afford, because you waited around and you're in a good position to buy. And this is all predicated on the fact, of course, that we don't end up in another credit crunch situation, which could see prices drop drastically. And the one question mark, of course, there is a lot of funny business going on in the banking industry right now. If a bank falls over, then very quickly we could end up in another credit crunch situation where the market virtually stops overnight. And I hope that doesn't happen. Obviously, of course, I don't want people to lose value on the properties that they've got, but we also have to face facts that look at how unaffordable things are becoming. Inflation is running away. We've got people striking across the country because they can't afford to buy food. We've got an increase in food banks and all the rest of it. So times are tough for people right now. We have to face that reality. And that unfortunately means over the short to medium term, prices have to come down in order to meet affordability because wages aren't going up. Okay, so hope that answers the question well for you, Kerry. Obviously, if there's anything else we can do from our side to help you out, then please just let me know. But I wish you all the best of luck with that, and have a great Christmas as well. All right. So moving on, question number 5 comes in from Arnie. Arnie says, my wife and I are considering going into buy-to-let, but with all the new legislation coming in, is it worth the hassle? Also, are there any laws in place to protect landlords if a tenant refuses to pay? I've watched a show on TV, and this seems to be a common problem. We've been given details from a friend for a good letting agent who will take care of everything for us if we go ahead. Would you say it is still a good investment opportunity? Okay, Arnie, thank you for your question. Really appreciate you also being part of our WiggyWam community here, and for sending that question in. It's an interesting one to play around with at the moment with buy-to-let, because if you read a lot of the forums online of people that are in the investment world and have been landlords, particularly the ones that have been in the market for a long time. A lot of them are getting fed up with the what seems to be a constant onslaught of legislation changes against landlords and the impact that is having on their business and the amount of costs that they're now attracting into their business, and also the issues around what they're able to deduct against their monthly income. And one of the things they're not allowed to deduct anymore, of course, is the um, cost of the monthly mortgage unless the property is held in a limited company. And that can also have impacts in terms of ownership of the property, how easy it is to transfer ownership to another party, how much deposit you have to put down in order to buy that particular property, and then, how, of course, how you get your profits out of that company and into your own pocket. So there is a lot of pros and cons involved in all of this. If the answer I would give you on this one, is it depends on your personal financial situation. At the moment, and this has probably been the case for the last, I don't know, 60, 80, 100 years, is that the landlord tenant legislation and scenarios tends to go through a bit of a cycle where sometimes legislation is in the tenant's favour, then it's in the landlord's favour, and it kind of swings back and forth between the two. The issue that I think the government are going to have very soon is finding enough properties for tenants to go into, because a lot of landlords are getting out of the game, which is causing this contraction in the number of properties that are available, which means the monthly rent that tenants are having to pay is going up because there's less supply, more demand. That forces prices one way, of course. So the opportunity is actually quite good if you look at the numbers. If you're a cash buyer, I would suggest. If you're in a position where you're having to borrow to make this work, then it needs a little bit more thought as to what you're actually financially going to gain, because a lot of people get into buy-to-let with the misnomer that the property market doubles every 7 to 10 years. And that's not always the case. Yes, over the long term, the market has gone up. But if you look at what happened in 2007, 2008, for example, the market dropped like 20% in certain areas, or maybe more. And so if you're buying in 2007 and then the property market drops off a cliff the following year, well, where does that leave you? So these are the sorts of questions that you need to ask yourself. What happens if something untoward happens that I'm not prepared for, I'm not ready for? What will I actually be allowed to deduct against my income? That's a conversation to have with an accountant who knows your personal financial situation, because I don't know whether you're both earning independently, whether you're both retired, whether you are in a position to have other people come in as a consortium, perhaps, and invest in buying property together. These are all sorts of things that can go on to maybe make your investing journey a little bit more advantageous. What you might want to consider is buying a property, doing it up and selling it, okay, and both of you using your capital gains tax allowance that you get every single year to deduct against the cost of against the profit that you've made on the property, and therefore, pocketing extra cash every single year as a result of doing that. Obviously, if you're going to buy now, if the market drops by 20%, again, are you going to recover your investment? These are the sorts of things that you need to think about and buy well. My honest advice on it, if you're going to go into buy to let, you need to think very carefully about it all. But not only that, get some investment education behind you. I can recommend a number of different sources across the UK where people can help you with this. It is one of those industries, unfortunately, where there's a lot of sharks involved and a lot of charlatans, which is one of the reasons why I got out of the industry, because I couldn't stand that people were being parted with their life savings and they weren't getting what they thought they were investing into. Okay, thankfully that was not through the organizations that I was tied with, but there were other players in the same industry, unfortunately, who were letting people down substantially. So you need to be very, very careful. Are there laws in place to protect the landlords if a tenant refuses to pay? Well, yes, there are, but you have to go through the process of evicting the tenant, and that can be time-consuming. It can be costly. It can involve court visits and God knows what else. And as I say, at the moment, the legislation is in favour of the tenant more so than the landlord at the moment. So you want to work alongside a very good letting agent. If you've got details of one from a friend, I would say definitely use them, get involved with them. work alongside them, and they will help and support you through the journey, and they'll be able to handle most of that other work for you so that you're not left in the lurch of having to deal with it as well. Okay. It is a common problem, perhaps in certain areas where tenants won't pay. There are other areas where, I've had tenants in a property for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and they've been no problem. They paid the rent on time every single month, and they've lived in it and treated it as their own home because it is. Okay, so there's a lot of pros. There are some cons. Those cons are getting greater at the moment. It is a balancing act. Uh, would I? What would I do if I was going back into it? I would change my strategy big time if I was going back into investing, Arnie. I would flip more properties first, which means buy it, do it up and sell it, buy it, do it up and sell it. Or if you're really smart, do it up and sell it without buying it. But that's a conversation for another day. So yeah, I would flip more and bank more cash rather than buying well and then refinancing and then renting it out. Okay, that would be the one thing I would do differently. Um, you can explore a couple of those options. And again, if you want more in-depth conversation around that, Arnie, we have a number of videos actually within the WiggyWam platform that you can access, which will give you a bit of a background in property investment in terms of finding the right property, what you need to be looking for, how to make it work for you, and all the rest of it. And those videos are free. All you need to do is go to wiggywam.co.uk and sign up to get one of your get a free profile there. And if you look at the learning center on the website there, you'll be able to access all of those different training videos, which will guide you through how to get started in property. And as I say, if you need some more resources, if you want a mentor, or you want somebody else to hold your hand, I've got some very good friends still in the industry who will be delighted to help you out and give you all of the up-to-date information on how best to go about building a portfolio. All right. So hope that helps, Arnie. Thank you so much indeed for your question. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas as well, and look forward to hearing from you again in the future. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that draws our webinar to a close today. Thank you so much again for all of your questions and for joining in and for your incredible support over the course of the last, well, I suppose 90 days or so that we've been running these webinars. It's really wonderful to be able to sort of share some help and support and advice to various different people and help you along with your property journey, because I know how daunting and complicated it can seem when you're getting first started getting into property. And I remember one of the most humbling experiences for me was, I think it was 2006, when I'd spent a number of years in the property industry as an estate agent and also trained to become a surveyor. And I went to my very first property investment education seminar, right? And I was like, yeah, it's dead easy to make money in property, right? This is all you need to do, buy it, do it up and sell it. And I got introduced to this entirely different world of not only just personal development education, but also different strategies, techniques, and tools that you can use to build a property portfolio that nobody had ever showed me before. And I was like, oh my goodness. And that was, as I say, one of the start of my journey to realizing how much I don't know as an individual. And yeah, it's been really interesting to change my life since 2006 to become more widely read and more studying of realizing that I don't know virtually anything as far as this world is concerned. There is so much to learn, so much to understand, so much to get our heads around. But that, as I say, has led me on this journey of learning a huge amount of stuff, which I'm now able to share with as many people as possible through these webinars and through these questions that we send out every week to people. And so I greatly appreciate every single one of you for being part of our WiggyWam community, for submitting your questions each week, for taking the time to watch our webinars, and also to share these questions and these webinars with your friends and family. It really does help us to reach more and more people. There's some incredibly exciting things coming in 2023 as far as WiggyWam is concerned. So I hope you'll join us on that journey. Please do submit your questions. We are going to continue running these webinars throughout. We're going to do one between Christmas and New Year, and then we're going to launch into 2023 with a lot more on the webinar content side of things. So any questions, concerns, comments that you have, please send them through to us. Happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. That's happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. You can also submit information to us via our website, which is wiggywam.co.uk. That's wiggywam.co.uk. Or you can find us on Twitter, which is at wiggywam_UK, at wiggywam_UK. And again, submit any questions, comments, feedback to that. feel free to consider sharing this with your friends and family so that we can expand our reach and reach more people. And if there's anything that we can do to help you with your property journey, please do let me know. Um, Final mention to our £50,000 Christmas giveaway. If you want to take part in that, just shoot me an email. Happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk with the subject line Christmas giveaway. That's happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk with the subject line Christmas giveaway. And I would look forward to welcoming you into our 12-week roadmap journey in the new year, which will help you get at least 20% additional revenue in your business or build you up to be a superstar player if you're an individual working for a company and you want to take part in that as well. So we're doing our bit to try and help you guys and girls. Wishing you all the very best for Christmas, whatever it is you decide to do. Hope you have an amazing time. Hope it is the Christmas that you want, and it's a nice time to reflect and take some time for you and just reflect on the year that's gone and the one that's coming, and may it bring you all that you wish for yourself and others. All right. Looking forward to it, guys and girls. Thank you so much indeed. Have a lovely Christmas and New Year, and I will see you very soon. You take care. Bye bye.